Hey guys, leisurely Sunday afternoon, and I've got part 1 of 2 of a video for you here. So it's going to be a retro comic review, and today we're going to be talking about Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, issue number 95, written by Howard Mackey with art by John Romita Jr. and inks by Scott Hanna. At the beginning of the issue, we have one of these awesome gatefold covers that pops out that tells you what's been going on in the book, as well as gives you some backstory about Norman Osborn and most of the key players in this issue. So at the beginning, we have this issue with Norman and Peter and Betty and little Normie Osborn all trapped in an elevator post an explosion. But it doesn't tell you in the beginning exactly what happens. So it says, in order to give the readers an answer, we'll have to back up several hours to the beginning of our story. So the question was, how do I find myself in these predicaments? Well, Peter Parker starts out the day by capturing a villain. Then the guns are seized. The new mayor at this point seems to be really tough on crime. So Wilson Fisk makes the comment and says, you know, this guy's going to prove to be a worthy adversary. But what I want to point out to you is when the action gets started here about halfway through the book, it doesn't stop. You've got Nitro, who's out for Norman Osborn, and Peter has to grab Betty Brant and shove her in the elevator. And they got out of the way of the explosion, but maybe the explosion's going to get them yet anyway. Have you ever read a comic book where it's just action-packed from beginning to end? It just doesn't stop. It doesn't let you catch a breath. This is one of those books. So the elevator explodes. Then you get to see Betty get injured by some falling debris. And the next thing you know, Peter and Norman are both knocked unconscious. And you see Peter's out, Norman's out, Betty's out, and little Normie is the only one that's awake, and he's like, hey, is there anybody that can help? Meanwhile, our hero and our villain wake up in the elevator, and they begin to banter back and forth. And what I gotta say about Howard Mackey writing Norman Osborn, he wrote a damn fine Norman Osborn. He brought that character to the surface, and you got to realize exactly how much you had missed by the psychotic Norman Osborn not having been in the Spider-Man books for all these years. So they go back and forth about the Osborn legacy. They go back and forth about Peter. And Norman says, my son Harry, you claim to be his friend, is confident, and when he needed you the most, you failed him as you do everyone else who gets close to you. Failed just as you failed your unborn, and he was about to say unborn child. And you get this awesome double-page spread. Say what you will about the Clone Saga, guys, but post-Clone Saga, once it was revealed to be Norman Osborn, you got some really, really good Osborn moments in this particular run from, say, 75 through 98, the first official ending of the series. And eventually, Osborn pushes Peter to push the elevator, push the debris off of him, and then he gets everybody out except for Norman. And little Normie says, Peter, aren't you going to save my grandpa? And so Peter goes back to save him, and the elevator almost crushes him here at the end. And Osborn's laying there. He says, once again, Parker, it could have all been over. All you had to do was nothing, and I would have been out of your life forever. And as Peter collapses onto the floor, he says, you're welcome, Norman. So just all-out action is what I want to emphasize on this book. If you need something that's going to give you a cup of coffee's worth of caffeine and you want to read something exciting, here's a book for you. The second book is going to be, for part 2, is actually going to cover issue number 83, which is called Vertigo. And that's another kind of one-off story that follows Peter Parker post a Morbius vampire bite. But we'll talk about that in the next video. Right now, if you guys have never read this, you can probably go back and find it in the dollar bin somewhere, dirt cheap, but it's an excellent book. And Howard Mackey on this first run, I don't know what happened. It seemed like he was getting more and more and more amped up from the time that he took this book on. And then once issue 98 hit and Norman's master plan came to fruition, then when Peter Parker and Amazing came back a few months later, it was almost like Howard had lost his spark, because he only stayed on the title, I want to say 29 more issues for Amazing Spider-Man, and then he was gone off of Peter Parker Spider-Man, I think by issue 20, replaced by Paul Jenkins. So, but like I said, guys, if you have not read this, the artwork is amazing. This is JR at his peak of his power. This is Howard Mackey still in love with the character of Spider-Man and his amazing cast that comes along with him. So go check this book out, guys. You will not be disappointed. And like I said, more times than not, you could probably find this one in the dollar bins.